Artificial intelligence is eating America's power grid alive, and the one country that can keep the lights on might just be the one Donald Trump can't afford to lose. The US energy map is being redrawn, not by oil fields or coal mines, but by data centers, massive AI training facilities that can guzzle as much electricity as a small city. And right now, every major tech player, from Silicon Valley to Wall Street, is in a race to build bigger, faster, and more power-hungry AI systems. Here's the problem. America's own power grid isn't ready. The East Coast, the Midwest, and even parts of Texas are seeing electricity demand spike at levels not seen in decades. In the PJM grid, which powers states like Virginia, Pennsylvania, and Ohio, peak demand is forecast to jump by an extra 30 gigawatts by 2030. For perspective, that's the equivalent of adding about 30 large nuclear reactors to the grid. And most of that growth is from one thing: data centers. Enter Canada, the quiet, clean energy powerhouse next door. With vast hydroelectric dams in Quebec, nuclear power in Ontario, and steady flows of natural gas from Alberta and British Columbia, Canada has something the US desperately needs: firm, reliable, low-carbon electricity. And there's more at stake than just keeping the lights on. Donald Trump, back in the political spotlight, is under pressure to show that he can secure the resources needed for America's technological dominance. His team is urgently exploring deals for cross-border energy, because without Canada's power, the US could face rolling blackouts, surging electricity prices, and a slowdown in AI development. In today's breakdown, we'll look at why Trump can't afford to lose Canada, the high-stakes projects connecting the two countries, and the real winners and losers if this energy partnership breaks down. Because in the age of AI, energy isn't just power, it's global leverage, and Canada holds a bigger piece of that puzzle than most Americans realize. To understand why Washington is suddenly glancing nervously toward Ottawa, you have to step back and look at the way America's electricity story has changed. For more than a decade, the US grid enjoyed a strange kind of stability. Efficiency improvements, the offshoring of heavy industry, and a slow, predictable pace of electrification kept demand growth almost flat. Utilities could project consumption years in advance with only minor adjustments. That world doesn't exist anymore. By 2024, the US Energy Information Administration was already sounding the alarm. Total consumption had climbed to over 4,186 terawatt hours, a record at the time, and is expected to climb again to 4,284 terawatt hours by 2026. This isn't the gentle curve of a growing economy. It's a sharp uptick powered by something entirely new: the insatiable appetite of artificial intelligence. Modern AI models don't train themselves on a laptop in someone's garage. They run in vast server halls, each the size of multiple football fields, drawing on a constant, heavy stream of electricity to keep millions of processors humming, and just as much power again to keep them cool. The epicenter of this transformation is the PJM interconnection, the largest electricity market in the United States. Its planners now warn that peak demand could jump by more than 30 gigawatts by 2030. To put that in perspective, that's like adding the entire electricity demand of Greece to the grid in just 6 years. And almost all of that increase comes from one source: data centers, the industrial palaces of the AI age. The problem is, America's own capacity to meet this demand is boxed in. Nuclear plants take more than a decade to build. Renewable projects, while booming on paper, are bottlenecked by transmission delays and the challenge of storing intermittent energy. Firing up new fossil fuel plants invites political backlash, clashes with state-level climate mandates, and risks alienating investors who have staked their reputations on green energy portfolios. That is why Canada's shadow looms so large over this debate. Across the border, power is not just plentiful, it is cleaner and, in many cases, already wired into the US grid. Quebec's massive hydroelectric dams churn out more than enough electricity to power millions of homes, and unlike wind or solar, that output doesn't dip when the sun sets or the wind stalls. Ontario's nuclear fleet runs with steady precision, soon to be joined by the first commercial small modular reactor in North America at Darlington, a project that could redefine how clean baseload power is delivered. And from the west, natural gas flows down from Alberta and British Columbia at levels not seen since 2010, feeding the American plants that can fire up on short notice when AI workloads surge. Several high-stakes arteries already connect this northern energy giant to the US. The Champlain-Hudson Power Express, a high-voltage line running from Quebec straight into New York City, is due to switch on in May 2026, delivering a lifeline of clean electricity right into one of the hungriest urban markets in the country. The New England Clean Energy Connect, after years of legal and political warfare, is finally back on track to bring Quebec Hydro into Massachusetts through Maine, and plans for the Lake Erie Connector promise a direct link from Ontario's grid to Pennsylvania, dropping Canadian nuclear and hydropower right into the heart of PJM, precisely where the AI boom is hottest. Donald Trump's dilemma is that energy has become both a bargaining chip and a vulnerability. Canada can, if it wishes, send more of its clean power to other markets, Europe for example, or tie exports to climate conditions that may not align with his political platform. Yet for Trump, securing these flows is a chance to claim victory on two fronts: keeping America's AI ambitions powered and proving that he can strike deals that protect the nation's competitive edge. If those deals fail, the optics are brutal. His rivals would have a simple line to repeat, that Trump's hardline posture cost America the energy it needed to win the tech race. And in this race, the stakes are higher than blackouts or high bills. They reach into the question of whether the United States can hold its ground in a global contest where AI is the new oil, and Canada, whether it likes it or not, is sitting right on the pipelines. When you follow the current, both the literal electricity flowing through transmission lines and the financial current running through energy markets, the picture becomes even sharper. The United States and Canada don't just trade lumber, cars, or grain. Energy has quietly become one of the largest pillars of their economic relationship, worth more than $150 billion in 2024 alone. And that number isn't static. It's weighted heavily in America's favor as an importer. Canada sends south far more energy than it takes in, and that imbalance is exactly what makes Washington's position so exposed. Electricity is the most visible part of that equation. In 2024, Canadian utilities sold roughly $3.1 billion worth of power across the border, down from over $4 billion the year before due to price swings, but still a significant chunk of US supply in regions that are now facing the AI wave head-on. The appeal is obvious. Most of that electricity is hydroelectric, low carbon, and constant, a godsend for grid operators trying to balance a load curve warped by 24-hour data center demand. Gas is the quieter partner in this relationship, but in many ways, it's just as critical. In 2024, Canadian pipelines delivered an average of 8.8 billion cubic feet per day into the United States, the highest level in 14 years. That gas doesn't just heat homes, it fuels combined cycle plants that can ramp up quickly when AI workloads spike in the evening or during a heat wave when cooling systems strain the grid. Without those flows, American utilities in the Midwest and Northeast would be forced to bid against LNG importers overseas, driving up prices for everyone from factories to families. Layered on top of this existing trade is a network of mega projects designed to make that flow cleaner, bigger, and more reliable. The Champlain-Hudson Power Express is more than a cable under a river. It's a 1,250 megawatt umbilical cord stretching from the reservoirs of Quebec into the heart of New York City. If it opens on schedule in May 2026, it will quietly shift the city's energy diet away from fossil fuels and toward the same low-carbon power that has kept Quebec's grid stable for decades. In Massachusetts, the New England Clean Energy Connect has fought its way through courtrooms and referendums, finally winning a federal court's blessing in April 2025. Its completion will inject badly needed clean megawatts into a region already feeling the squeeze from AI-linked consumption. And then there's the Lake Erie Connector, a proposed high-voltage line that would run beneath the water, linking Ontario's nuclear-heavy grid directly to Pennsylvania. For the PJM system, already bracing for an unprecedented 30-gigawatt jump in peak demand, such a link could mean the difference between steady growth and rolling capacity warnings. On the Canadian side, the picture is just as dynamic. Ontario Power Generation broke ground in May 2025 on North America's first commercial small modular reactor at Darlington. Once operational, it will feed the grid with clean baseload power that can be exported south under the right agreements, potentially with clean energy credits attached for US tech companies desperate to greenwash their AI operations. Meanwhile, on the western seaboard, LNG Canada shipped its first cargo in mid-2025, signaling that Canadian gas is no longer just a continental commodity, but a global one. That diversification gives Ottawa leverage. The more markets it serves, the less dependent it is on US buyers, and the more leverage it has in any negotiation. All these projects and flows come down to one blunt reality. The AI boom is arriving faster than America's domestic energy expansion can match it. The country can either find partners who can deliver firm, clean power at scale, or it can backfill the gap with more fossil generation, at a cost in both dollars and emissions. Canada is uniquely positioned to play that role. The danger for Trump is that if those negotiations stall or sour, he won't just be looking at higher power bills in swing states. He'll be staring at a slowdown in AI build-out, empty server halls where there should be humming racks, and a narrative that his administration failed to keep America plugged into the future. If Trump can lock in a deal with Canada, the winners will be easy to spot, and so will the losers if he fails. On the winning side, the most obvious beneficiaries are the AI giants. Companies like Microsoft, Amazon, and Google have staked billions of dollars on training next-generation AI models that require uninterrupted streams of electricity. Their facilities in Virginia, Ohio, and New York don't just flicker on and off. They operate like the beating heart of a living organism, each heartbeat powered by megawatts of energy. Give them a stable supply of clean power from Canada, and they can keep scaling without tripping over environmental regulations or grid constraints. The states hosting these data centers would also come out ahead. Virginia's Data Center Alley in Loudoun County has already seen tax revenue pour in from the AI build-out, but it's also bumping against the limits of the local grid. A cross-border power flow that relieves that pressure would protect jobs, keep construction cranes moving, and allow governors to take credit for sustaining high-tech growth without sacrificing environmental goals. New York, Massachusetts, and Pennsylvania would see similar benefits, with the added bonus of being able to market themselves as hubs for clean, green AI. On the Canadian side, the winners are equally obvious. Hydro-Quebec and Ontario Power Generation stand to secure long-term contracts worth billions, locking in revenue streams that can fund domestic infrastructure, expand capacity, and justify further investment in nuclear and renewable projects. Politically, it gives Ottawa leverage in broader trade talks, proving that Canadian energy isn't just a side note in North American economics, but a strategic asset. But flip the scenario, and the losers pile up quickly. If talks collapse, the most immediate pain would be felt by the tech sector. Without the Canadian supply cushion, US utilities would be forced to meet AI-driven demand spikes with whatever they can build fast, which in many cases means gas peakers, or worse, reactivating mothballed coal plants. That would not only send carbon emissions higher, it would invite fierce opposition from environmental groups and even some investors who have been pressuring corporations to hit net zero targets. States could see their energy costs spiral, undermining the very economic growth those data centers were supposed to bring. A slowdown in AI infrastructure build-out could ripple through local economies, stalling construction jobs, chilling tech investment, and eroding tax bases. For Trump himself, the political cost could be severe. A president who built his reputation on the art of the deal would have to explain why America's most important 21st century industry was forced to scale back because he couldn't keep the lights on. Canada would lose too, but in a different way. Without a US deal, much of its export capacity would have to be redirected overseas, often at higher logistical costs and under different regulatory regimes. That might be profitable in the short term, especially for LNG shipments to Asia or Europe, but it would mean giving up a dependable, high-volume customer right across the border. And because energy infrastructure is built for decades-long partnerships, breaking or stalling a deal now could permanently shift investment priorities away from cross-border interconnection. In the end, the stakes for both sides are bigger than just electrons flowing over a line or molecules of gas moving through a pipe. They're about market share in the AI age, about who controls the infrastructure that powers the algorithms shaping everything from finance to national security. And right now, those stakes are balanced on a thin strand of negotiation that could snap under political strain. The reality is that the US-Canada energy relationship is about to be stress tested in ways it hasn't been in decades. The AI revolution is moving faster than the pace of new power plant construction, faster than most state regulators can approve transmission lines, and faster than Washington can set coherent energy policy. Every month of delay in securing cross-border deals is a month where America's grid edges closer to capacity limits. If Trump manages to secure an agreement, the benefits will ripple far beyond the AI sector. Stable, clean energy imports would give US utilities breathing room to modernize infrastructure without rushing into high-cost, high-emission stopgaps. They would allow AI companies to scale without the specter of blackouts or political battles over their carbon footprint. And they would keep electricity prices in check for ordinary consumers who, in most cases, couldn't care less about AI, but care very much about their monthly bills. But if the talks stall, the fallout could be swift. Data center projects might be delayed or downsized. States banking on tech-driven growth could see those plans unravel. And politically, Trump would be left defending a gap between his promises of dominance in AI and the hard reality of a grid straining under the weight of that ambition. In the long run, failure to lock in Canadian energy could also push US tech firms to look abroad for more stable operating environments, an outcome that would undercut America's role as the epicenter of AI innovation. Canada, for its part, will continue to have options: LNG exports to Asia, power sales to other partners, and a domestic push toward electrification all provide alternative markets. The question is not whether Canada can survive without the US market. It can, but whether both countries can thrive without each other in an age where energy security is the foundation of economic and technological power. In the end, this isn't just an energy story. It's a technology story, a trade story, and a geopolitical story rolled into one. If America wants to lead the AI era, it needs the power to fuel it. And right now, a big part of that power runs through the rivers, reactors, and pipelines of its neighbor to the north. So the next time you hear political leaders talking about AI as the future, ask them the real question: where's the electricity going to come from? Because without the answer, without Canada, the future could go dark a lot sooner than anyone expects.